everyone, welcome to Studio Science. My name is Surinder Chaudhary. In this video lecture, let's talk about IELTS writing task 1 in academic form, and there are a number of tasks that IDP asks you to attempt, and among those there is one very significant type which is known as pie chart. Well, it's obviously a complicated task for a number of students, but in this workshop I am going to discuss about different methodologies. How can we attempt it very easily and make it impressive to get good scores? All right. So firstly, we will have to have a look on the question. How does the question appears in your final examination? In front of you, there are two pies where different types of data has been mentioned. Okay, what this data is about. For that, we have to have a look on the question prompt. The question prompt says, the pie charts compare ways of accessing the news in Canada and Australia. So this is related to two different countries in which different mediums of accessing news are used. Which those different mediums are there? It has been mentioned at the bottom of your image. Firstly, it is TV, then radio, then it is print, then there is online method, and finally there is something which is not specified. So what we have to do, read the second part of the question. It asks us to summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Obviously, if there is two simultaneous kind of data, right, we have to make some comparisons. We are talking about same things, same categories in two different countries. So definitely there will be a proper comparison and we will make that comparison here in this workshop. So please bear with me and try to understand each and every part of this answer. Well, like other you can say task 1 answers, I will also recommend here to divide your task 1 of pie chart into 4 different paragraphs. First should be your introduction. Introduction should carry a proper paraphrasing of your question prompt. Then there should be an overview. Overview must be an abstract, must be a summary of the entire data description that you are going to elaborate in your third paragraph, which is body paragraph 1, and fourth paragraph, which is body paragraph 2. So that description should be direct rendering of your overview that you present here. Okay, so let's move to our introduction part. In introduction, we are supposed to highlight or we are supposed to paraphrase the question itself in our own method, in our own way, by replacing the words with some good synonyms, or even you can change the method of your grammatical structure or sentence structure as well, which is also a good way to paraphrase your question. Okay, how do we do that? It says the pie charts illustrate the primary methods of obtaining news in Canada and Australia. So this is the basic information about these pie charts, that it is the information related to those methods which are used by Canadians and Australians to obtain the news. Okay, we can elaborate the introduction a little by saying that while both countries exhibit generally similar trends, there are notable variances ranging from significant to minor. Okay, let's talk about trends. Trends are that if we have to compare the biggest and the smallest uses of sources, these are almost similar. If we talk about the bigger chunks that has been taken by like online sources, which is 36% in Canada and 52% in Australia. On the other hand, if we talk about television, even that is a little similar in the trend form. Right? Trends are almost similar. But within those trends, there are some variances. For example, if we compare the online method in Australia, it is obviously more than 50%, but in Canada, it's around 36% only. So this justifies here. Trends are same as they say, because if we talk about the bigger sources, these are definitely online source and television in both the countries. But within those trends, there are some changes, there are some fluctuations. Okay, let's talk about overview now. What overview should be there? In overview section, it says, from an overall perspective, the extensive utilization of the internet in Australia leads to a decrease in the utilization of alternative ways such as radio and print, especially when compared with Canada. Well, we can see that entire chunk, that is more than 50%, has been covered by online sources. So what it results in? It results in the lack of or the less utilization of other sources in Australia. But if we talk about the other country where it is not that intensive, it is 36%, which is obviously more than one third, but still in comparison to Australia, it is a little less. And it gives space to other sources to be utilized a little more than this one. You can see here, this particular segment, which is print segment, is only 7% in Australia, but in this country it is 14%. And even if we talk about radio, radio is listened to by only 2% people in Australia. On the other hand, in Canada, it carries a little more weightage in comparison to Australia. So this is the reason I have mentioned in the overview that the extensive use of internet or online sources in Australia is actually keeping other sources shrinked in comparison to Canada, where other sources are also having a good chunk of share in them. Okay, so that was overview, and after overview, now we are supposed to talk about its elaboration. How do we compare the data with one another? All right. In body paragraph 1, we are going to talk about first comparison. It says there is a notable contrast between Canada and Australia in terms of news consumption method. Obviously, this is a general line that has been talking about the entire comparison or the contrast. Okay, what contrast is that, or what comparison is that? It says while online news access surpasses a third of the population in Canada, you can see here they are talking about this 36% margin where online sources are utilized in Canada. Obviously, it is more than one third, more than 33%. It exceeds half in Australia, reaching 52%. But if we talk about Australia, because we are now comparing here the utilization of online sources. So in Canada, it was a little more than one third, but in Australia, it was more than half, which finally reaches 52% ratio of utilization. Okay, further, let's make some more comparisons. Both countries demonstrate a strong preference for TV news with 40% Canadians and almost equal number of Australians favoring this medium. So, second bigger chunk is taken by television if we talk about both countries collectively, but their trends are almost similar. If we talk about the consumption of television as a medium of news, it is 40% in Canada and almost equal number of Australians are utilizing it, which is 37%. So this is another comparison we can talk about of these methods of accessing news. Well, moving ahead, there are some minor sources which are also used by people, and we have to talk about these as well. However, there is a significant disparity. Why did I change the thought here? Because in previous, I'll go there once again in body paragraph 1. In this one, we said that television is almost equally preferred by all the people. But on the other hand, if we talk about other source, that is print news, right? Print news has a great disparity. Why? If we see the percentage of print news in Canada, this is 14%. And if we see that same in Australia, this is half of that. So obviously it is a big disparity. That disparity must be mentioned or must be highlighted in your report. You can see there is a significant disparity in print news consumption as over 2 times Canadians read the news in print compared to Australians. This is very clear that more than or you can say almost double Canadians are using this method in comparison to Australians, which is obviously 14% and 7% respectively if we make a good comparison of this sentence. Because in order or orderly sentences are really impressive if you really can make them. And please learn it from here that how can we use these orderly sentences. If something has been mentioned, or for example, here countries have been mentioned in a certain sequence, if the data is further mentioned in the same sequence, you can use this structure of sentence where you end it with the word respectively. Okay, well, finally, we have to sum it up. Radio news listening is 3 times more prevalent in Canada than in Australia. If we make the comparison of this method, which is radio news, it is also having a very much kind of disparity in it, which is 2% and 7%, and obviously it is more than 3 times in comparison to Australia, or you can say more than 3 times Canadians are using radio as a medium of news access in comparison to Australians. So this is how you can make such comparisons. As always, you don't have to talk about everything, like there are two other sources like not specified, right? Mainly not specified ones, right? So you don't have to talk about that much because there is not many there are not many disparities here, or it is not very much significant to talk about, so you can also ignore such data as well. IDP never asks you to talk about entire data because they say that data they already have, they don't have to talk, or you don't have to mention the data. You just have to make those comparisons so that you can showcase your variety, your range of vocabulary and sentence structures, and your coherence and cohesion properly. So that's all from this workshop. And finally, this is the final version of the entire workshop where we have generated our final answer. So you can take a screenshot of it, and it will be a good reference document for you when you are practicing your pie chart questions. All right, this is all about this lecture. And if you really want to know more about such writing tasks or anything about IELTS, you can contact us on those details. We are also available in visa counseling. Even if you need that, you can talk to us. Thank you so much.